Hi guys, I'm Dan at vintagevelo.org, and today we are going to make use of a glorious summer's day to take these two bikes head to head. Now what we have here are two Carrera Team bikes. The one here on my right we met only a couple of weeks ago when we were building that one up. 1989 Carrera Team bike ridden by Urs Zimmermann, and on my left here we have the more traditional looking yet only 1 year younger 1988 Carrera Battaglin, written by Guido Bontempi to various stage wins at the Tour de France and Giro d'Italia, a real sprint king. Now, technically, there's only 1 year apart from these two bikes, but there is a world of difference in the actual technology, especially the group sets. So it's going to be quite fascinating to get them out there and see how they go. Obviously, Zimmermann's bike, slightly smaller. Guido Bontempi is my size, so this one here technically should be the better ride for me because of the size, but hey, they're both set up very, very similar for reach, stack, and drop, and all the rest of it. But on the Carrera bike here, with the rather stunning chromo velato paint, we have a full Dura Ace 8-speed with STI levers. Now, admittedly, 8-speed they definitely had in 89, but they weren't using STI. That wasn't until the year later. But I had a little bit of artistic license and popped those on rather than the indexing down tube shifters it would have had. Much more traditional and traditional looking on the Battaglin, even though it's only a year earlier. 7-speed, and that is full Campagnolo C record throughout. And to be fair, it's a really butch system on that one, and we do have the Delta brakes as well, which are glorious to look at. Now, speaking of beauty, which one? Hard to say. The red, white and blue of Carrera is classic Stephen Roche era, and it's a real thing to look at, and the C record is fantastic, especially the Delta brakes. Yeah, sure, they're not the greatest brakes in the world, but they're not that bad either, and they are drippingly gorgeous. On the right here, well, chrome plated steel frame with chromo velato. What's not to like? I'll leave it up to you guys to decide. Let me know down below which one you think is the more stunning of the two. They both have their merits. One thing I should point out, I was a bit surprised, weigh-in, not much between the two of them. 9.9 kilos for Zimmermann's bike, and Bontempi's bike 10.01. So despite the heavier brakes, and believe me, Delta brakes are a lot heavier, the STIs kind of traded off. STI levers way more heavy than down tube shifters. If you remember, that's why Pantani in 98 had a down tube shifter on the big ring and an STI lever for the rear chainring, just to save that bit of weight. But enough about that. The real question is, we need to get out there and see how they compare. Now, although I rode the Battaglin a year or two ago for a video, I'm just going to take it out for a quick refresher. Let's see how that one goes, then we'll park that and get out there and really put the Carrera through its paces. Now also, we can't ride this without talking about the Campagnolo C record. Now, it's on here, and yeah, it's a thing. Let me get you in close on those brakes. They are just epic. And to be fair, they do stop you pretty well. Once you get used to the modulation feeling, basically, they don't brake very well off the hoods, but if you're on the drops, they are fantastic, no issue at all. Also on here, I've got the 7-speed synchro, which, to be fair to Campagnolo, wasn't that good. Certainly nowhere near as good as the Dura Ace index shifting example. But this one, I did shell out quite a lot of money for to get one as good and new as possible, and it's a lot better than the other ones I have ridden. Yeah, this one is really well set up, really nice, really clicky, holds gear perfectly. So maybe I've been a bit harsh in the past with my views of Campagnolo 7-speed. Only a sniff behind Dura Ace, I would say, at that point, but it's a much stiffer group set than Dura Ace. There we go. shorter than anticipated test ride on Guido Bontempi's Battaglin. My left cleat has just kind of exploded and fallen apart. Again, good old eBay on its quality items. Marked up as genuine Shimano again, but I've never seen one crack and fall in half before that was actually the real deal. Come on eBay, the scammers are really at it hard at the moment. We had the chain issue not so long ago, spotted that one, but at the moment I can only push on the left with about half the power, unless it wants to fly out completely. But I've ridden this bike many times before, I do know it, so it's not that much of a compromise. Now what it is, obviously steel frame, Columbus SL, Carrera made, well Battaglin made for Carrera Team, and Guido Bontempi used this very bike in the 1988 season, and obviously he's a multiple Tour stage winner, Giro stage sprint winner, and all-round awesome cyclist, much better than me. But for me, this thing rides really well. Obviously being my size helps, but you know, SL is so smooth, this stuff. This one, quite stiff for the size. Obviously it's a very big frame, but it's not whippy or anything like that. Maybe more cruisy side of racy for me. I'm sure, you know, out of saddle giving it the big guy sprint, it's super fast. But right now, it's the kind of bike you'd really love to take on a Gran Fondo, something like that. Something where you're at 200 plus kilometers in your day in the saddle, and you're going to come out the other side of that feeling great, everyone loving it, and you loving it. But enough about this one, let's go ride the other one. Okay, let's get into the nitty gritty of this comparison. The frame on this Carrera 1989 team bike as opposed to 1 year earlier, the 1988 Battaglin team bike. Now, SL versus SLX. Now this is SLX throughout, with fortunately lugs, and it also has chrome plating, which makes no difference whatsoever other than looking really fine with chromo velato paint. Now, question is, can I tell any difference between the SL and SLX? I'm going to be honest, yes. SL is a really plush, smooth, sexy, gorgeous ride, and it's the kind of ride you want to sit on and ride for a long time. SLX just feels a bit more racy, a bit more on edge. Now, certainly for sure, that could just be geometry and the way that it was built. I believe the Bellato brothers built these on contract for Carrera. I may be wrong there, often am, but yeah, you never know. Yeah. Okay, big truck. Now, you never know what the frame builder intended to build in, but certainly in this bike, it's kind of quicker, kind of nippier. Now, it hasn't got that urgent surge you get from the carbon frame, don't get me wrong, but it definitely, you know, like, get it on a 2% incline, keep the cadence up, and it just wants you to push harder. You're kind of just starting to verge onto that feel of a stiff aluminium frame rather than plush steel. Who knows? But it's really nice nonetheless. All right, let's take a moment just to talk about the group set here on the Carrera. Now, 1 year on, Dura Ace, all Shimano throughout. We've got 8-speed. We should have had down tube shifters with indexing, but we've gone STI, but that's the only real difference. And yeah, there is a big difference. Obviously STI, we've got to kind of overlook that. And the brakes here, dual pivot, of course they're going to work a lot better. That's a given, but dual pivot over single pivot, you know, hey, we know they're a good thing. And I mean, yeah, deltas, stunning, they work well enough, but yeah, I wouldn't necessarily want to, can't do some Tour de France cold descent with them. But on here, this setup, it's strange, you know, when you get off one bike, jump on another, it really allows for quick analysis, you know, it's fresh in the mind. And whilst this is crisper and cleaner and probably lighter, it's not as smooth. The actual group set, not quite a smooth feeling. That may just be the general smoothness and overwhelming package of that Columbus SL Carrera Battaglin. But this, I mean, it's definitely better, it's definitely faster, it's definitely easier to use as a group set goes, but it's not as slick or smooth as the C Record. Hey, maybe it's just the way I've set it up, don't know, but that's just my opinion. But you know, don't get me wrong, it's still pretty darn epic. Just a small pothole here, and already, so like all top bikes, I expect them to descend like thoroughbreds, and this one is no exception. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's not laboured, it's not slow in the corners, responds really well. You just get down low, avoid trucks on our side of the road, and then just keep off the brakes and hold on for dear life. Christ. Bloody hell, we're catching cars up. Oh lordy. Lots of brakes, lots of brakes. Oh, dual pivot Shimano Dura Ace. Oh, we love you at this point. Right, I'm climbing hard now. Again, this is an area where the Carrera does definitely outshine the Battaglin. It is a much more accomplished climbing bike. So that's both bikes ridden and thoroughly tested. I've got to be honest, these last couple of weeks I have been out on the Carrera a lot. A few little bits of fine tweaking and changing and adjusting. I always like to do that after any build, just to get something fitting right. Interestingly, when I say fit, obviously technically, Guido Bontempi's Carrera Battaglin fits me correctly. It's the right size for me. I'm a big guy, Bontempi's a big guy, so that's a perfect fit. However, this Carrera is slightly smaller, and I actually prefer that. I don't know why, it just seems to fit and work better for me. Sometimes, I mean, yeah, massive bikes don't always do it for me, despite being a big guy. But for me, this setup works brilliantly. Now, comparing the two bikes, oddly, if you watch the summary from when we rode the Carrera Battaglin, I think it was the beginning of last year, that at the end I described it was a beautiful bike, and I could well imagine if you wanted to ride 250 kilometers of a stage and then be as fresh as possible for that big hit and surge at the end for the sprint, that bike was perfect. And it still feels the same now. It is super smooth and really lovely to ride, whereas this, you know, I'm going to be honest, I mean, with this, if I wanted to go out and join some buddies who are on carbon at the weekend and keep up at the very least, if not humiliate them at times, this is the thing to do it on. It is really quick, it's really lively, it's really fun. As I mentioned earlier, it's bordering on that kind of 90s aluminium film. It's really fun to ride. Now, if I wanted to pick one to win a stage at the Tour de France, assuming I was considerably better and younger and more gifted and better,
without a doubt, I would pick Sean Yates' 711 Mercs team bike because that is a real race-winning bike, or at least it feels that way for me. But it's not the Tour anymore. I'm nowhere near going anywhere near it. And this bike, I think, you know, is hard to beat. It's really, really good fun, and it's a great ride. So yeah, who would have thought? Do let me know your thoughts below. Which one do we prefer the look of? Now, hard to say. I mean, yeah, the Chromo Volato Blue is stunning, but the classic look of the Carrera Battaglin, you decide. Leave it up to you. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. Do like and subscribe for anything else that's cool to do with vintage bikes. Thanks a lot.